Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. Well, the House Republicans released their tax bill today. We don't have all the details yet, but we do have some of the high points. They're not ready to take away the 401k tax preservation just yet. And that was what Donald Trump wanted. They are going to take away the deduction for state income tax payments on itemized taxpayers. That's bad news in Arkansas for a lot of taxpayers. They're not going to do away with the estate tax for 6 years, they say, but they're going to double the exemption up to $20 million for a married couple. I'm sure that'll bring a sigh of relief to a lot of you out there. The corporate tax rate, the big news, would drop at the top end from 35% to 20%. That's perhaps a $2 trillion tax cut for corporate people. And that's where the big money is going to come from. That leaves open the question of what other budget cuts are in mind to help pay for some of this tax cut, particularly in Medicare and Medicaid. Common Cause also noted that deep in the bill there's a requirement that will hold churches harmless if they do direct partisan political activity. They won't have to lose their tax exemption. This will cause some unhappiness from some people. There's a lot more to know. We simply don't know how the benefits and demerits are going to be spread across the tax spectrum. Critics from the Democratic Party to Americans for Tax Fairness say that it's going to hit middle income and lower income people hardest. A 12.5% tax rate for people on the bottom end could be punishing. It might not produce a lot of dollars, but it'll certainly hurt for lower income people. Well, talking about money, let's look at Arkansas. Today was the day the state put out its monthly revenue report on tax income. And after the first 4 months of the year, Arkansas is $30 million behind where they'd expected to be. If that continues and doesn't get corrected, some budgets will have to be cut. Sales tax just didn't come in as expected, and corporate income tax is exceedingly low. There's news on the execution front. The state is prepared to execute Jack Green next week. There was a hearing in Jefferson Circuit Court today in which lawyers for Green say he's not mentally competent to be executed. Green says he wants to be executed if he can't live out his life in North Carolina for another crime there. The state of Arkansas law says that the director of the correction department decides who's mentally competent and who isn't. It seems amazing. Also on the execution front, the state Supreme Court today said a Little Rock lawyer who's been pressing Freedom of Information Act requests about drugs used in the execution process is entitled to see package labels and drug inserts on the midazolam drug used in executions under the Freedom of Information Act, at least insofar as manufacturers are concerned. But they did say that they can protect who actually sold the drugs and who actually supplied the drugs. More news yesterday from Oklahoma in the forced labor lawsuits issues. This is the thing that's been developed about some great reporting on how people in drug courts in Arkansas and Oklahoma have been sent to work for poultry companies and other industries in terrible conditions. They don't get paid for their work. The money goes to some nonprofit agencies that claim to be rehabilitation agencies, but they don't do much rehabilitation. A new federal lawsuit in Oklahoma yesterday named 7 plaintiffs and a number of defendants, including Hendren Plastics, the company that's headed by State Senator Jim Hendren and started in partnership with his father, State Representative Kim Hendren. It's terrible stuff. These people are held basically incommunicado in work camps. They work long hours in terrible conditions. They get fed a bologna sandwich and an expired Little Debbie cake at lunch. They don't get any meaningful rehabilitation, just some AA meetings held by people who are in the work camps. They say that they're forced to go to church at a church in Gravette, Arkansas on Sunday. They detail any number of other very difficult things about their circumstances. One thing is they say that drug use is rampant in these drug camps, people taking a lot of meth. Perhaps you would too if you were in such terrible conditions. Jim Hendren has stopped using these workers. He said he thought it was above board and helpful to the men. There's a lot more to be said about this. Not a lot of publicity in Arkansas. It's interesting. Are these sacred cows, Simmons Food and Hendren Plastic Company? Apparently so, but we're writing about it, and you can find the full details of the lawsuit on arkansasblog.com. Interesting story broken on KARK last night about a homeless family living at a homeless camp in South Little Rock. It's a family, mother, father, 4-month-old child. There's nothing illegal about living in a tent, even with a 4-month-old child. The child is well taken care of, but it stirred a great deal of interest. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on circumstances, which we don't fully know, the state took an interest. They found the father in the family has an outstanding warrant. He's been arrested, and now the state is taking custody of the child. People are very upset about this. People should be able to live the way they want to live as long as the child is not being taken care of. The people who live in the homeless camp said the child was well fed and warm on cold nights, even though only 4 months old. Interesting testimony this week in Sheridan. The Sheridan Headlight reports on the murder case of Rusty Draper, 45-year-old man from Prattsville, charged early this year with killing a 17-year-old Sheridan high school student. Information that's come out in pre-trial proceedings contributes more evidence to a potential motive, that the father was very upset that a girl had broken up with his son and started dating someone else. That someone else was the person who Draper allegedly killed. Tyson Foods Foundation and Barbara Tyson have given $1.5 million to the University of Arkansas's David Pryor Center for Oral History to digitize KATV's collection of 50 years worth of newsreel footage, 26,000 hours of film and video. When it's digitized, the whole world can go back and look at great moments in Arkansas news, weather, and sports. The Arkansas Supreme Court today, this morning, before its news and execution realm, held that a circuit judge in Little Rock was wrong in allowing testimony about a lap dance a woman had given for another woman one night. The next night she was raped by a man who witnessed a lap dance. The Supreme Court said the evidence about that lap dancing couldn't be presented under the rape shield law. The state had asked for that protection. Dan Greenberg, a former state representative from Little Rock who runs a conservative think tank, Advance Arkansas Institute, and who's been recently chairman of the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, which is overseeing parts of the regulation of medical marijuana under a new state law, has decided to leave for Washington with his family. He's going to work in the Labor Department and work on deregulating business licensure. This has been a long passion of the conservative Greenberg, and some will miss him, some won't, I think it's fair to say, but he certainly was engaged in the issue. He's now in the Trump administration. That's it for me today. Lots to resist. Stick with it. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.